I was like, I'm not going to be playing football this summer. After that, like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then once I got back, my agent called me. He said, hey, what do you think of playing for Memphis for the last 3 weeks of their season? And I was like, absolutely. I'll get on the next plane down there. Send me the playbook right now. Like, I'm ready to get to work.
It felt like a rivalry game with like the
Really?
amount of people that were there.
Okay.
I'm saying like the atmosphere, it felt like crazy.
Hello, welcome back to Division I Rejects. Per usual, I'm your host, Kobe Manzo. This is D1R 203. Y'all are in for a treat tonight. Two incredible guests on tonight's episode of D1 Rejects, the first of which went camping in Seattle with the Seahawks, now just signing a UFL deal with the Memphis Showboats. The tight end from the College of New Jersey, Thomas Burke joins the program here very shortly. And then later on, another D3 football product. Whole episode's D3 tonight. Not quite. But Wes Hack, the wide receiver from Muhlenberg, joins the show to talk about the Mules trip over to Germany, playing some international football, helping to grow the game, the Mules over there overseas. Sounds like they had an incredible experience. So excited to talk to both of those guys. Otherwise, we have multiple UFL signings for small school players. We're going to go through and talk about, I think, every single small school football player that's playing in the UFL, that kind of spring, summer football league, professional football league right now. So really excited to talk about those guys because they deserve a lot of shine. That football, that is a very high-level football. And we got a lot of guys, get some good representation from D2, D3, and NAIA in all of those ranks. So, as always, watch this episode on YouTube. Don't forget about those timestamps, video chapters in the description. They're also available on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this episode. Go down there, figure out what you want to listen to, then get out of here. Otherwise, follow us on the socials. Hit us up everywhere. Continue watching. Thank you so much for the support. Had a great visit down at UW River Falls, doing a facility tour for the Falcons down there. So be on the lookout for some of that content to release here in the coming weeks. Very excited about that trip and what Coach Walker and company had going on down there. So, without further ado, let's get right into this episode talking with Thomas. Joining the show tonight, a guy who was rated as a top 20 tight end in all the 2025 draft class. Camped with the Seattle Seahawks, has now signed a deal with the Memphis Showboats out of the UFL, hailing from the College of New Jersey. Tight end Thomas Burke. What's up, fella?
How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Dude, excited to get you on here. Glad we can make this work. And excited for you. Feels like you're still very much in the midst of this entire process, obviously finishing up your career at TCNJ and now going on to these pro opportunities, man. Last couple months has had to have been a whirlwind for you, huh?
Yeah, it's been crazy. Starting in December, going to the FCS Bowl.
Yep.
And then from there, working with Test, who's based out of New Jersey. They do a lot of good work. I was doing my pro day, my whole pro day combine training process with them. They really did a good job of taking me to that next level, getting me ready. I definitely felt like a much better athlete, much better football player working with them.
I like that. The numbers show that too, right? Fourth in program history, 128 grabs, along with being a top 5 all-time yards leader and leading all of D3 football this year. That's what I get to do. I get to come on here and sing your praises, brother. But that's seriously impressive. What is it about the system you've played in that has helped you achieve those kind of statistical and also team goals and help you put you on the map as a pro prospect?
So I had a long career in an up and down career in college. My sophomore year, I started as the starter, and then by week 5, I lost my spot. I wasn't playing. I struggled with the playbook, wasn't doing well, wasn't making the plays I needed to make. And then that same year, that same spring, we brought in Coach Aaron Mershman, who became our offensive coordinator. And ever since he came in, we really hit it off. He really helped me see the potential I had in myself. He became a real mentor for me. We've gotten real close throughout the years. I'll go to his house. My girlfriend will babysit his kids.
That's awesome.
We got that kind of relationship. We're really close. And he just kind of helped set up a system, not just around me, but he set it up where it played to my strengths, where I could make the plays I needed to make.
Yeah,
the plays he saw I could make. So having him come was a huge blessing in my life. It really changed the trajectory of my whole football career.
A good coach can do that. Isn't that wild? How your college football and college experience in general could be impacted that much by one individual. And a lot of times, like in your instance, it might not even be a head coach, right? It might not even be an entire new staff, but one person that helps to mold you or put you in the best situation, whether it is on either side of the ball or special teams, whatever phase of the game it is, they can have that effect. Some people have the adverse effect, and the career maybe takes the turn in maybe the not so great direction, but glad to hear that for you it was not the case. Now, brag about yourself a little bit. What goes into your game? What separates you? What puts you into this position? How has that helped you see this kind of personal and team success?
I think what really separates me is my length. I have long arms. I'm not the strongest tight end out there, but I really use my leverage and my I got longer legs, I got longer arms. I really use that to my strength when it comes to blocking.
Heck yeah.
When it comes to shedding tackles. My pass catching, I think, is elite. It's up. It's just as good as any of the top tight ends.
Yep.
Then my route running. I've done a lot of work with Jordan Reed. He had a long tenure with the Redskins or the Commanders. There
we go. Yep, good grab there. Good grab.
Yeah. But if you watch his film, he was playing basketball out there. Like the way he played football wasn't like any other tight end.
Okay.
He was just shiftier than any of the other tight ends in the league at that time. So all last summer it would just be I'm originally from Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, and I just got lucky and met him. We would do a couple sessions a week, just him and I out in a hot field in the middle of Ashburn, Virginia, just getting that work in.
Yeah.
The way he helped me, like the way I never really worked with like on my route running per se. I'm like, I'm just going to go out there and play football. But the way he, laid it out for me, like that's when you really saw me make that big jump going from my senior year into my fifth year. And I'm really grateful for the work he did with me.
That's awesome.
So yeah, my route running has really improved.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, probably giving you a whole new appreciation for that aspect of your game and something that, like you said, didn't even really tap into before and had some of that untapped potential. And we're still having some results, but it takes someone to come in a different perspective, maybe a new set of eyes to show you something that you didn't even see before. And now to fast forward, talk me through the opportunity with the Seahawks. They drafted a tight end in the second round. They signed 2 in the UDFA. It's fair to say there was a lot of young competition in that group.
Yeah. I when I saw they drafted a tight end and signed 2, I said, I'm going out there and I'm just going to play.
Absolutely.
I got nothing to lose. I got, if they really like me, they really want to bring me back, they'll bring me back. If not, it's just a great opportunity. It's good exposure. And yeah, I just went out there. I did all I could to show I can be a pro. And it was just a great opportunity. They have an awesome facility out there right on Lake Washington. It was really cool, especially coming from a Division III where, we don't have all that. We don't have any of that. I had to buy my own gear.
It's a big step. It's a big step, man. That's a big step.
Yeah, as soon as I get there, I have a whole locker full of my own gear. It was really cool. It was awesome.
That is really neat. And there were a lot of eyes on that specific room, right? When it came to this, the buzz around a talented veteran like Fant, along with the high draft pick, certainly had more eyes, I think, on the competition in that tight end room for the Seahawks. And it really was a position that I think seemingly was more open than people thought going into this. Maybe they thought someone would have it locked up. Could you feel that edge being around those guys? How do they handle the day-to-day with that competition and the level of talent that was there with all you guys? You talk about that being a surplus of talent in that room. How did they handle that and go about it? What'd you learn from that?
I just learned how to be a pro. Everyone there, you could tell, was like, it was, shades were on. Like, we're tunnel vision. We're here to work. We're here to get after it. The guys were cool, but it's not like we were like joking around. We were still, cordial and cool with each other. But like, it was like, all right, we're here to do a job. I was here to prove myself, show I belong there. They were here to keep their job. Try to make it through the summer, make it through to the season. So just being in that atmosphere really shows you like the difference between like an amateur and a pro.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a really cool experience.
What was some of the feedback you got from that?
I was told I was a little unrefined, unpolished.
Sure.
I kind of expect that coming from a Division III. I haven't had the same level of coaching that a lot of these guys from bigger schools have had, but they still said, we see potential in you. We see, you can play ball when it comes to just playing. Like, we can see you can do that. But, they said, we're not going to stick with you now. Maybe you could get a call later down the road. And then I was like, I'm not going to be playing football this summer. After that, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going on. And then once I got back, my agent called me. He said, hey, what do you think of playing for Memphis for the last 3 weeks of their season? And I was like, absolutely. I'll get on the next plane down there. Send me the playbook right now. Like, I'm ready to get to work. Let's do it.
Dude, that is awesome. That's sweet. I was about to say it's got to be a pretty short turnaround, and I was going to literally right into the next question was talking about that kind of emotional roller coaster, right? Of getting at the time what probably feels like some of the worst news ever, right? That you're not going to be, part of that Seattle squad, but then you go out of it and you say, well, I've just earned another shot to go and play still really high level football, professional football at a place where, for being honest, probably going to get a lot more of a fair shake, so to speak, right? Coming in, there's a lot of guys in the UFL that have more of a similar background to you than maybe at the NFL level. What excites you, aside, of course, from the opportunity to still play pro ball, about the UFL and the setup that might be different from that NFL opportunity that still could be a goal down the road?
I think there's always something cool about being a part of something at the ground level. The UFL is still a young organization with a lot of potential.
Yeah.
So just being able to, later down the road when it's huge, and I can say I was there when we were, we all had to share an office. Being able to say I was a part of that is really cool. As a Division III guy, the big knock against me is that I haven't played a high level football. So being able to have this opportunity and go out and show, I can play with the best of the best. I can play with whoever. It's a great opportunity for me. I'm really excited.
The biggest question I think that I had for you coming into this is, can we get one of those helmet cams on you for the games? Have you seen those things?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe next year. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
That's okay.
We got one game left, but
that's okay.
Maybe next year.
That's okay. We need to make that happen because those things are outrageous. They are sweet. I don't know how in the world they figure that out, and they got that going on game day with the drones going overhead, almost knocking people in the helmet as well. Got to get you one of the body cams for sure.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
That'd be pretty cool, man. Now, with Memphis, was that something that was on your radar beforehand, or you kind of made it sound like when you had talked to your agent that was something that maybe came out of the blue? Did you have any prior contact with them? Where did that come from?
No, honestly, my agent never really mentioned the UFL.
Okay.
He was always like NFL or CFL, like that's what we're going to be looking at mostly for you. So when he called me with like the UFL, I was a little surprised, but I was like, yeah, let's do it. That looks like a fun league to play for. I would love to be a part of that.
No, that's awesome. And going kind of back as well, what'd you take away from your time at TCNJ that you feel has been a critical part of your development on the backside of this now, going to the professional career?
I think early in my career, I was like really like tightly wound. I was always like, I need to like make this play. I can't mess up this play. I gotta like, everyone's counting on me. Everyone's looking at me. And then as I progressed as a player, it just became, I'm just going to go out there and play ball. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've put in so much work to like even stress about it now. Like the work's been put in, the hay's been put in the barn.
Yeah.
But this is the fun part. This is where you just get to go out and play some ball.
Love that saying, by the way. Great usage of that right there. And I guess kind of last one for you. You talked about that business mindset, poker face, so to speak, at the NFL level, those guys who, yes, are good humans and are going to treat you in a respectful way, but also, like you said, they're there to get a check too, right? These guys are about their business. I'm assuming you have a very similar level of professionalism when you're around the facilities. Obviously different kind of apples to oranges, UFL to NFL, in terms of the facility setup and where they're at as a kind of a startup type of program in the grand scheme of things. What have you seen? What are the differences in terms of the day-to-day operation at the UFL level?
It's honestly not that different because a lot of those guys were in NFL buildings.
Absolutely.
A lot of those guys, some of them made it to second contract. Some of them were, they had a good career in the league. So my roommate actually, who's he's not here right now, but he won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady and the Bucs.
There you go. That's awesome.
Like stories like that where like you're like, oh, like yeah, you've been there, you've done it, you know what to do. I'm just here so you can show me, help me get to that level.
Yeah, I love that, dude. You met anyone else with some small school backgrounds yet?
A couple Division II guys.
Yeah.
Not. I know there's a Division III QB on Arlington.
Yep. Wayne.
My one of my buddies, my roommate actually, when I was down in Florida doing my pro day training, Phil Lutz, he played at Tufts.
Okay.
Balled out at Tufts, made it to Delaware, and now he's playing in the CFL.
Okay, I didn't know about that. There you go.
Yep.
Like that.
Shout
like
out to
that,
Phil
dude.
Lutz. That's my guy.
There you go, man. No, that's awesome. That's all I had for you. I'm excited to continue to follow along, wrap this up, and then I'm sure the timeline and everything for you as things go forward, of course, continue to work. And then when that fall camp report day comes for a lot of these NFL teams, the mindset from you has to be, hey, I'm a snap or an injury or an unforeseen circumstance away from getting the call.
Yep. So I'm just staying ready. That's what it's all about.
Hell yeah, man. Hey, isn't the barn, Thomas. I appreciate you, dude.
Right.
That's all I got for you tonight, brother.
All right. Appreciate it, Cope.
I'll see you. Big shout out to Thomas for coming on the program tonight. We're going to talk about the UFL. Feels like a very great segue into this topic. And why is the UFL special? I think that's kind of where you start this thing. And for first of all, of course, we're talking about the small school guys, right? We're talking about the D2, the D3, the NAIA guys. They maybe didn't crack it at the NFL level. A lot of these guys, maybe it was their first opportunity or first chance to try and get into a mini camp or to sign a UDFA deal type of situation. But it's also a great chance for the pro bounce backs of the bigger institutions, right? Think your Max Duggins, your Taco Charlton, your Matt Corral. But also, we talk about those small school players. It's a great blend of all these guys, right? Some of those names that I just mentioned, you probably had heard of playing at their larger respective Power 4 type institutions. Maybe at the time, Power 5, depending on, where they came out of, and when. But I think it's a great blend of that, and people kind of see it as maybe that quote-unquote feeder league to the NFL, and I certainly could see that kind of perspective. I totally get that, because for the vast majority of these guys, that is still the end goal, is playing in the NFL. But the UFL is a great opportunity for guys who still get to go play professional football, put up on this pedestal. They're playing on Fox, they're playing on ESPN, all these deals, and it's a very high-level competitive scene that, no knock against the CFL or indoor league or maybe playing overseas. It's just not quite the same. The UFL is right in the NFL's backyard. You're not necessarily dealing with some of the rules and limitations of the Canadian League concerning how many Americans you can have on the field or on the roster. And some of those instances, the competitive scene maybe overseas, not quite up to snuff with what the UFL has to offer. So with the USFL and XFL merging, feels like there is a lot of momentum for the UFL to have some real staying power here in the coming 5, 10, 15 years. Because if you remember very recently, when the XFL made their return back in 2019, probably 2018, somewhere along those lines, and I guess it actually would be probably closer to like 2020 because would have got shut down, but they had some real momentum going into the pandemic. They had some real momentum, and I thought the XFL was actually set up for some success. Of course, COVID-19 shut that whole parade down, but it feels like a lot of those same ideas and starting to reinvigorate that fan base, people who really, truly love football, people that know ball, are watching the UFL. I have myself turned into a few games. Can't say I've been an avid watcher of every single one. I'd be lying to y'all, but I have tuned into some games, especially to watch some of these guys try and go out there and compete, and it's been a fun product. It's been a very fun product. The way they enhance the broadcast and kind of display things in a different light has been really exciting. So let's get into talking about the small school players playing in the UFL, and we're going to start with what I think is probably the most recent signing of the bunch, and that being the incredible running back out of Virginia Union, Jada Byers, signing with the Memphis Showboats. Byers was the CIAA Offensive Player of the Year. He ran for over 2,000 yards and 27 touchdowns last season for Virginia Union. The Panthers had an incredible year, the best in program history. And this man in the offensive backfield was, to be honest with you, to be very blunt, he was a big reason for why that actually happened. So kudos to Jada Byers and what he's done for that program at the Panthers, and he will certainly make the most of what he has going on in Memphis. So let's move on, talk about a bunch of the small school football products playing in the UFL. We dropped this thread on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. We dropped this thread on Twitter the other day, shouting out some of these guys. So let's go through this list and talk about some of these players. Starting things off, the Saginaw Valley State product, that being Nick Whiteside. He's going to join the Battle Hawks in St. Louis. He was the GLIAC Defensive Back of the Year, first-team All-Conference selection, second-team All-American, and he previously was with the Washington Commanders in the NFL. And this is a guy that I got to see in person, playing at Northern, being in the conference. Lockdown, the type of dude that shuts down one side of the field. The quarterback has no option to go over there at all. So shout out to Nick, being able to see him in person. Had a stint in the NFL with the Commanders. Now will certainly make the most of it in the UFL. Let's switch to the other side of the ball. Xavier Malone from Henderson State, and he didn't start his career as a Ready over there at Henderson. He transferred to Henderson after 2 seasons at Northeast Mississippi Community College, and then after some great standout years with the Reddies down there in the GAC, he was a UDFA with the Atlanta Falcons. UDFA, for those of you not familiar, an undrafted free agent, someone they go out and acquire typically after the draft process is already over. Very common for some small school products to be lumped into that sum. So, had a stint with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, moving on to the Michigan Panthers, where you see he's getting some PT with them. And I believe he's involved, obviously at wide receiver. I also believe he's involved maybe a little bit in the kick return game and some of the special teams aspects of what they have going on there with the Panthers. Let's go over to the defensive side now. Matt Cattell from West Florida. The Argonauts, hell of a program, a very recent, in the grand scheme of things, upstart of a program. Matt won a national championship with the Argos in 2019. This is actually his second stint with the Brahmas out of San Antonio after being drafted to them in the 2023 XFL draft. So, before the 2 leagues merge, he was originally drafted to the Brahmas, went back to the NFL, had a couple stints with a few teams in the NFL, and now has come back to the now rebranded UFL, still playing for the Brahmas. So kind of a neat story, and I would assume there's got to be some staff members and other people who were probably still there in his first go-around with the squad. So kind of an interesting deal there for Matt. We just had him on the show. You guys heard from him, Thomas Burke. I will kind of leave it at that. We talked with Thomas earlier today. The tight end out of the College of New Jersey has all the physical attributes that make up a professional tight end. And whether it was playing D3, D2, whatever the division was, you can't coach what this guy has. He talked about it, some of his leverage, his length, what he's able to do when the football is not in his hands, right? That's what makes him a really prominent pro prospect. He's with Memphis Showboats and actually have very similar color scheme to TCNJ there, which is kind of fun. But he's with them and certainly will make the most of his opportunity. Let's keep going down the list, though. From Frostburg State, talk about Niles Scott, who will be playing with the Defenders. Niles, he first came to the NFL as an undrafted free agent out of Division III because Frostburg, I guess I kind of learned this actually just recently, made that transition to D2, I want to say in, I don't know, somewhere in that like 2020, early 2020s type of deal. Like it's a very recent move from D3 to D2, or 2018. He came out of out of Frostburg State, signed with the San Francisco 49ers. He was an All-American, named to the D3Football.com All-East Region Defensive Player of the Year. Quite the mouthful. All that to say was an incredible player in college at the D3 level. The school has now since transitioned over. He'll be playing for the DC Defenders. Moving along. Well, you'll notice there's a lot of Panther players on this list. They must have something for the small school guys. The second Cardinal on this list out of Saginaw Valley, that's Nate McCrary, the running back from SVSU, was a first-team All-GLIAC selection. He ranks 4th on the SVSU career rushing touchdowns all-time list, and he had stints with many NFL teams, starting in Baltimore, now with the Panthers out of Michigan in the UFL. This guy has certainly shown his pedigree in the NFL, and while he maybe hasn't cracked through quite yet and made the kind of impact I'm sure he wants to, this will be a great opportunity for him to get back and compete on that level. Nate Wieland, an NAIA product out of Grandview. Again, a little bit of a different story for Nate, and they didn't go to Grandview right out of high school. There's a little bit of a different route for him. He originally signed with Iowa in the Big Ten out of high school. Slowed down by injuries, he transferred to Iowa Western Community College. From there, bounced back, went on to play linebacker at Grandview, had like 80 tackles in his last year there with the Vikings and really put on, had a great season with them. Got his NFL start with the Patriots and now is in San Antonio for the UFL playing with the Brahmas. So an interesting journey for Nate, but keeping the football dream alive, keeping this thing going. Another GLIAC shout-out, this time, though, on the defensive line, I do believe. Sorry, had to get my my things mixed up here. The defensive line, Dennis Johnson from Grand Valley State is a first team all GLIAC member. Was the GVSU Defensive Lineman of the Year. He makes the transition, the former Laker, playing for the Defenders in that front defensive five there in the UFL. And then from Missouri Western, we have Keith Russell. Let me find my notes here on Keith. But going from Missouri Western, once again, another pickup for the Panthers. An offensive lineman. He was an all-MIAA selection for the Griffins. Big part of their success. This is when the Griffins were a top 25 team in the country at the time. Have since maybe not gotten back to that same pedigree, but he was a big part of that success offensively for that Griffins front. Keep things going from the CSP, former NSIC squad, now that has that moved out of that conference. But Chris Garrett, who is now playing for the Battlehawks. Let's see here. Set the NCAA Division II record for career forced fumbles with 15. He ranked third in NCAA Division II history with 1.3 sacks per game. That's astounding. He's got over a sack per game, third in NCAA Division II history. He was also a Cliff Harris Award finalist while playing for the Bears. So a great college career, and now hoping to continue that into the pros. Chris Garrett. Now, couple of Pitt State products here you'll notice. Keontae Harden, the first one for the Gorillas. Playing once again for the Panthers. He started his career actually at Minnesota in the Big Ten before transferring to Pittsburgh State. Overcame an season-ending injury his junior year. Came back, had a standout season, and now is getting his chance in the UFL. So shout out to him. And as we keep going through this list, here's another Pitt State product right here in Markel Roby, the safety from Pittsburgh State. He was a two-time all-conference performer at Briarcliff, an NAIA squad before Pitt State. He was involved big time in the kick return game for the Gorillas as well, so made his presence felt on special teams, something he has continued to contribute into his professional ranks. He had one real year at Pitt because of COVID, had a couple years of eligibility, but he played the whole 21 season. That's where he had his kind of breakout year, so to speak, and now is getting his shot in the pros. Blake Jackson is a really fun story. Now, Blake is a wide receiver right now for the Battlehawks, but he was a dynamic quarterback in the D3 world before making that switch offensively over to wide receiver. He's also played in the CFL and the Arena League, along with an NFL stint in Cleveland in 2019. But when he was playing for the Crew, for the Crusaders down there at UMHB, D3 All-American, he was the ASC Offensive Player of the Year and a national championship MVP that year. Man. Finished his senior season at Mary Hardin Baylor with over 3,500 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, and over 1,100 yards rushing with an additional 12 tuds on the ground. That's an incredible year for any type of quarterback, and for him to be able to make that switch athletically over to wide receiver certainly speaks volumes about his game. Another athletic D3 quarterback, Luke Lanin, out of North Central, who we've talked about a lot on this show, going over to Arlington to play with the Renegades. In his college career, he ranked first nationally in passing efficiency and yards per pass. He threw at least 2 touchdown passes in every game of his senior season. Every single game had at least 2 tuds through the air. 196 of 283 passing was good for about 70% completion percentage for over 3,200 yards and 43 touchdowns. That doesn't even begin to get in what he was able to do on the ground with his feet, how he could block for his teammates downfield. We've seen some incredible clips of him doing that as well. But just know that that guy truly does it all on the football field, especially when it was down in the Cardinals right there. So to keep things going, I do believe we have a couple more here. And this one is one that I'm super excited about. Chim Okorafor, a guy who we had on the podcast way back when he was first getting his start coming out of Benedictine at the NAIA ranks. This is a guy that I'm super excited about. He actually transferred in from Pittsburgh State, made a big impact with the Ravens, had a stint in the NFL, was with the Eagles, had bounced around a little bit trying to break through. He was an AFCA All-American and an All-Region player during his college career and has since been in the UFL. I believe this is his second stint playing in the USFL/UFL type of scene. He also, with the Michigan Panthers, feel like he is a guy that certainly is poised to make a breakthrough, and get back to that NFL scene. So hoping to have Chim back on the podcast soon. Really enjoyed talking with him last time, and he has just continued to impress. I believe I'm going to do a double check here. I think that's everyone, guys. That's a pretty incredible list. Sorry if I was like going really quickly. Just wanted to get through all those and give them all their love while trying to keep this thing moving along. But an incredible list of guys who have all gone on to the next level and are playing professional football. I think all professional football needs to be celebrated on this show. So if I'm missing people, or people that are playing in different leagues, whether that is European or indoor, arena, CFL, those kind of things, certainly would love to highlight them on this program. It's always just a matter of how much I know. Right? How much do I know going into it? It's really hard to aggregate and collect news at this level of football. You guys are all aware of that. But before we end this episode, let's go over to that next guest conversation and talk with the wide receiver out of Muhlenberg, fresh off a trip to Germany. Joining the show tonight, fresh off a trip abroad to play American football in Germany, representing the Mules from Muhlenberg, wide receiver Wes Hack. What's up, brother?
Nice to meet you, bro. We're happy to be here.
Excited to get you on here. Excited to talk about this squad, right? Really neat opportunity. And I know we had put out a post about some international trips, and then comments and everywhere else was flooded with like, I did not realize how many teams get to do this, you guys being one of them, and seeing some of the posts and videos on social. Off the rip, just looked like an incredible experience for you guys.
It was insane. Yeah, it was honestly probably one of the best experiences I've had, not just football-wise, but I mean, just life. I mean, I've never been to Europe, so this was just insane. All the guys said the same thing as well.
I would say you can't be the only one in that boat that hadn't done that kind of international travel before, especially at this point in your life, right? If something that maybe wasn't your parents weren't into or other people, then what kind of reason have you had to just go run around and explore some of these places? So the fact that you get to do it with your teammates, with coaches, and with people and go through that experience together is really neat. Now, May 18th was game day, but let's go back before the trip. What were the expectations for the guys heading in? Because like you said, a lot of them had never really experienced anything like this before.
Yeah, well, in terms of just the trip itself, I mean, we were super excited. But talking about the game, I mean, we didn't really know what to expect in terms of European football as a whole, German football. I mean, we are definitely sizing them up and kind of looking at ourselves because,
Sure.
we were a shortened roster going in.
Yep.
But yeah, we were, I think excited, a little anxious for the game, not really knowing what to expect. But I mean, we were so excited for just to see Europe and Germany and Austria and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think just super excited going in was the emotion.
100%. And, I was curious too, was a trip like this for you and the guys on this team part of the recruiting process before Muhlenberg? Because if I read correctly, this is the third trip the program has made. And obviously not with you guys, something that doesn't happen every single or every other year. But was this in the talks when you guys were maybe incoming class?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
This was a big puller for recruits coming in.
That's sweet.
And it was kind of like an alternative to studying abroad, because
Okay.
we got spring ball and the season, so there's not, I mean, you can do it, but not really. Guys don't really go abroad, so this is kind of your going abroad trip is this football trip.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. And you kind of mentioned it, exploring some of these new places. I think with this trip, a big portion of that is really enticing to people is what happens outside of game day, right? Those are some of the big moments. What were some of the highlights for you when it came to being away from football, things that you saw or got to experience with the guys?
Yeah. Well, I'd say first off, Munich. Well, we were in Munich first, Germany first, and just being able to, drink with a lot of the guys. That was a big portion of it. Going to the beer gardens and eating food with everyone.
That's awesome.
That was just insane.
That's so
'cause
sweet.
we're with a lot of freshmen and sophomores. It was just, just the bonding there was great. And then, other than that, I just say all the history, because I mean, most of the buildings we see in the U.S. are, a few hundred years old, but over in Germany and Austria, it was just, the churches and cathedrals were like, 500, 600 years
Unreal.
old.
Yeah.
And seeing that stuff was just so eye-opening, going on all the tours and everything. I'd say those were like the two big things. We were just great.
You talk about going over with some underclassmen. I have to imagine coming off the back end of this trip now, you probably have a lot better relationships with a few of those guys that maybe beforehand just hadn't had the time.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think definitely a lot of the freshmen we got a lot closer with. I'm a sophomore. All the guys on the trip, we got a lot closer. And I think that's kind of the aim point a little bit
Yeah.
of the trip is to bond the guys and the coaches and everyone together, because you're with these guys living for a week. and exploring and going through all this stuff together. It was just, I was telling my parents, I think we just got a lot closer as a team more than anything.
That's neat. That's an important part of it, dude. And another really cool piece of it, the team you're playing, Ravensburg Razorbacks. That just rolls off the tongue, by the way.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's a good name. Yeah.
Loved that. But what did you learn about those guys, their group, their setup, and the way that they operate over there?
Yeah, well, first off, they were super cool. Super cool guys. Great, great sportsmanship. Before we even started the game, some of them were on the field and we were talking to them a little bit. And they're super cool. Their whole setup that they have there is awesome. But in terms of, football players and everything like that, they were, they were talented guys. I think they're only allowed to have two Americans on the field at once,
Okay.
which I think
Interesting.
is a pretty cool rule. But I mean, they're hard football players, and they definitely have a good setup. I know some of the other guys were talking to them about, like how they get paid and how they live over there. And some guys are just there for a summer, and
Really?
some guys actually live, in Germany, and
Okay.
it's just a year-round thing for them. But the team itself is talented, big guys, older guys than we're
Yeah.
used to playing for sure. Like 30s and high 20s and 30s.
Yeah, I think that's the misconception always too, is some people think you're going over there to play like a youth, like a high school team or something. That's typically not the case with these kind of trips, right? So that's got to be a different factor as well. And, I wanted to ask how that atmosphere kind of related to what you guys maybe are used to, because yes, of course, there's still a game going on, still competitive football. It's not like you're just rolling out there and just having fun with it. Of course, a big part of that, but do have to feel like there was a part of you that felt like this was more of a event, quote unquote, than a game day? Was there kind of that feel in the atmosphere, and how did it relate to Saturdays back at the home field?
Yeah. Well, I think the feeling as a team was definitely trying to enjoy the moment as an event. It didn't it felt like a rivalry game with like the
Really?
amount of people that were there.
Okay.
I'm saying like the atmosphere, it felt like crazy. And it was definitely something that, you wanted to step back and enjoy. But I think in terms of the game itself, we wanted to win, and we were going in like, like any game. We were treating it, seriously, taking everything seriously. We wanted to kick some ass. So,
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Like that.
that was our mindset, I think.
Like that. And we talked a lot about off the field, some of those moments. When it came to the actual playing between the lines, you mentioned that rule about the Americans. Were there any other kind of unique quirks or any different rules that you had to go by over there, or kind of same old American football?
Yeah, all the rules of the game were pretty standard to what
Okay.
we're used to. I think the I think a surprising thing was just the refs and how they operated the game. It was clear that they were kind of new, or still feeling out some
Sure.
stuff, like stuff that we were used to the refs doing, like certain calls. It was just it was like every ref was like it was their first day on like a college football field. It was
Hard to
like,
get reps over there, I imagine,
yeah,
right? There
exactly.
you
So
go.
we were giving them, being lenient and stuff. We weren't
Yeah.
getting too mad at them, but
Y-
yeah, that was the only thing.
You talk about that atmosphere, like the rivalry almost type of feeling with obviously people from both groups representing. Did it feel like, I mean, obviously the people were excited about it. Could you get a sense of maybe a fandom for the sport over there? We're going to talk a little bit about growing the game in a minute, but just that sense when you got there, like people were excited about this, but also maybe had a little bit of a taste and an appetite for what this game is about and what it brings.
Yeah, I mean, when you got there, I wasn't expecting it all, but like their fans over there they were excited. They
Okay.
were, having a great time. They were doing their chants and everything, stuff that we had never really seen before. All the fans stayed the entire game. I mean, we were up pretty big at a certain point, but they were staying the whole game and giving us high fives in and out of the tunnel,
That's
whatever.
neat.
Um, so I think that the fans and the atmosphere and everything they have over there just seems like amazing. Like the culture that they have is great. So
Some of those game day traditions and rituals from the European football clubs, I mean, those are top tier. Like that would
oh yeah,
definitely rival some of the college football that we have going on over here. The way those people are in that game is, you talk about the chants, like that made me think of it right away. Some of the
no,
traditions they got over
literally,
there are awesome.
that's what it was. It reminded me of like European soccer. Like
Yeah.
they were doing the same stuff.
Yeah. Super involved. That's really neat. And I kind of, continue talking about that. The NFL obviously recently going into Europe, going into, Mexico, these different places, Brazil, whatever it is. How do you feel that kind of speaks for itself on the biggest stage? The Shield is this, predominantly this massive brand, but for you guys to be growing the game in your own way, I think is a very unique and interesting part of this as well. How do you feel you guys fit into the picture of helping grow this game on the national and international level?
Yeah, I mean, we're not really thinking about that going into it, but I mean, reflecting
Sure.
back, I think it's really cool, and I think it's awesome that we get to. You kind of forget playing football, how kind of foreign of an idea it is to different parts of the country, and then when you go over there, how excited people are that you're bringing football over, and you're experiencing it. And I think that the fact that people were so excited to see us play this game lets me know that the game is growing and people are excited to see it grow, which is encouraging. And I think football should be a global sport. I think it's an amazing sport. And I think that this experience in Germany playing this game showed me that people want to see American football, and it's exciting.
You guys have been a small part of it now, which is a really neat deal. And now we just got to get you in, flag football, so we get you in the Olympics, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be legit, man. But to go back to Muhlenberg and talking about the emphasis on this trip, it feels like, yes, you guys aren't the only ones doing this trip, but what does it mean in your experience there? How have they prioritized you guys and try to go out of their way, whether it's from a coaching staff standpoint, from an athletics administration, or just university, the school as a whole? What does that say about them to prioritize you guys and kind of put this trip and make this happen?
I mean, it's definitely really special that we are able to do this, and I think we're really thankful for it. So yeah, I mean, not a lot of people get to do this. I mean, I have friends that go to other colleges, D1, D2, D3, and they're not doing stuff like this. So I think looking at it like that, it shows how lucky we are as a program, and it shows how much our school cares, and putting something as crazy and cool as this together for us, for an experience not just as a football players, but just men, going through school and growing up through life. It was just it's really just a blessing.
And what's really neat too, I think, is that you're not a senior that's gone and leaving and done, right? You're a sophomore and you've got some years left with this program. Feel like this could be a real pivotal kind of point in your development, opening your eyes in terms of, yes, the world cultures and those kind of deals, but also in terms of maybe, you and other guys buy into this team, man, and having that experience that you guys can all go back to in the day and age of, now a college roster might look so different and have so much turnover on a year-to-year basis. Has to feel like this could be a great selling point for future recruits to the program, the idea of doing something like this, but also a great retaining factor for guys who now all have that shared experience. Is that kind of the general idea over there?
100%. I think, not just the experience and getting closer with the guys, and, this is something we can look back on, but just being on the field compared to last year, or compared to the fall, it was like a completely different team, and it gave us like a taste of what it's going to be like next year. Because you have camp and you have all that stuff, getting used to playing next to your guys, but there's something about like just a game day feel, and getting used to being next to the guys that you're going to be next to in game day, in the fall. I think it just it brought us closer, and it showed you that we can win games together with a new group, with young guys, with a lot of freshmen. I think it boosted our confidence a whole lot as well.
Yeah, that brings me to our last one for you, Wes. What's the ceiling for this Mules team in 25?
The ceiling is as high as it gets. I think we're aiming high. We got a young offense, but we're ready to get after it. I mean, we've got some talent in the receiver room. We got a lot of talent in the O-line room, and QB is ready to fire away. So I think we got a real shot at a national championship, and we're definitely coming for the conference for sure.
Go out and surprise some people, brother. Thank you for taking the time tonight, dude. Really appreciate it. Excited to hear that you guys had a good trip overseas, man.
Yes, sir. This was awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll see you, man.
Yes, sir.